Hi, this is Kashish. Welcome to a new episode of Business Odyssey.
Hi, I'm Lakshmi, based out in Bangalore, India.
Hello, I'm Laura, curious by nature. In today's episode, we had the pleasure of speaking with Cristina Perez, an L&D global specialist from Spain who works with cross-cultural teams. Let's deep dive into the role that L&D has in transformation and the value that really adds based on Cristina's experience. Let's get started.
Hi, Cristina. How are you? Thank you for being here in our podcast. It is a pleasure to have this conversation with you in another language. And also in a different perspective. So, I'm going to be very straightforward with the audience. We are going to talk about L&D. And before that, I would love you, Cristina, to introduce yourself to the audience.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you very much, Laura, for counting on me to be again in your podcast to discuss about learning and development, which is one of my passions, at least my work-wise passion. And yeah, it's a pleasure always to have some chat with you, either in Spanish or in English, as we're doing now. Hello everyone. My name is Cristina Perez. I'm a senior learning specialist located in Madrid, Spain, and I've been working my whole life connected with education. To begin with, initially I was studying for becoming a secondary school teacher of English and Spanish, but life took me through different paths. I ended up a year in Manchester working in a secondary school, but later on I started to know more about the importance of keep on developing yourself at work. And this is why I was for 2 years working in Romania in a customer service center as a cultural development specialist, where I was training communication skills and as well Spanish, a second language, to improve their Spanish level on the phone, but also started to train communication skills to the team leaders there too. And well, then life took me to the Netherlands. I was there for 5 years, working in a Hogeschool or Plaisance University for international business as a business communication skills, also Spanish teacher, as well as coach, trainer, etc. And lately I've been working for almost 3 years in a company as a senior learning specialist, where I supply with soft skills training, and as well I manage external suppliers that provide certain training such as English, coaching, etc. So all in all, I've been always connected to people's development, and I do really think my passion is to help people to do better, feel better, and thrive in the position they're doing at the moment.
Thank you for that introduction. It's quite a journey, the one that you had. So I just want to add a short question so you can deep dive into it. What do you
All
enjoy
right.
doing most, based on your experience, your evolution on a personal and professional side? So what do you enjoy doing most?
I would say facilitation. I mean, as well, I enjoy a lot providing solutions, learning and development solutions, for instance, for certain departments. Like I got a question from talent acquisition regarding how to transform certain informative content for hiring managers to make it more pedagogical. So I really like that as well, finding learning needs. But if I have to pick one, is facilitation, because you see directly the impact you can have in people. You see the dynamics that happen either virtually or in a room. You can even perceive the growth through role plays. You see aha moments from the participants. I think you can have very magical moments there, and I really like having this impact or direct impact on people. Of course, you can make plans of development, but during a session, during a facilitated session, it really changes everything. Of course, we can learn on our own, but now because of the media, we can do it online, we can do it in person, and the power that can have being together discussing about a topic or reflecting about something, for me is incredible. So yeah, and even if I'm facilitating a full day, I'm tired, not gonna lie. And I feel like I don't want to keep on hearing my voice until tomorrow. Like, okay, stay quiet the rest of the day. But jokes apart, I feel that what I do makes sense. And yeah, that is that part of my position that is not paid with money.
Yes, it's like you describe. I'm gonna highlight a keywords: impact, passion,
Hmm.
the connection that I will say the shared learning, the collaborative learning.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
okay, I like that. Thank you. So like making the connection with the other one, with those three keywords. What do you think is the role that L&D has in transformation? Plus, I will add an extra one. What do you think
Okay.
is the impact that it has? Not just the role, but the impact as well.
Okay, so I think, well, learning should be in any transformative process, but also we need to know when we implement that, right? For sure, through any change or transformation process in an organization, you need to communicate, to explain as well, to support the people that are going to be key elements to make that change happen. Many times are the managers plus HR in many occasions, but of course the managers need to be ready to support the rest of the organization when needed. And of course, in this sense, we can help the the people that are going to lead the change by training them, by bringing them the knowledge they need. But especially once we have been through the change curve, once we feel out of the confusion, sadness, anger, where things are changing all the time, I can't believe it, and it's not broken, what do we change it? Okay, whatever are the feelings that we're having across the organization. Once the feelings are more stabilized, it's time to start training people to make them see the quick gains they can have along the way. So we're making, I don't know, a whole change regarding one of the systems we're having for CRM, which requires a lot of effort from different departments, right? You need to make the transition of all the content or information databases that we have from one system to another one. You need to train the employees. You need, of course, to do some pilots to make sure that it's working adequately and the information is stored in the right manner. So there are many things to be involved. But for sure, learning should be there to make people feel empowered through the change, to see how they can and they are able to navigate the new context. Either they have the new skills, they could be hard or soft, and they can see the small advances along the way. So these learning experiences shouldn't be too challenging, but challenging, and also they are able to learn something and they can see the quick gains they're having to keep them in the loop, to be welcoming the change at that stage. So in that sense, I think learning can impact the leads of change in the organization by bringing them the content initially to take the lead and to be pioneers of the change because of the role, because of the attitude, and as well as once the change is there and people have navigated the different stages, to support the way they grow through the change and how they can get used to new ways of working. So the main impact of this is to empower people, the so-called word we have, empowering, but as well to help them grow their confidence along the way. Because changes are tricky. We are afraid of change. We are animals of customs and habits. So we need to put them on with all the tools and support we can. And learning is one of those.
Okay, I was thinking about I like the change curve, and like because what I have seen is that companies actually, it's not what you said that you highlighted, that when people feel more stable when it comes to change, that is the moment to apply the learning. So what I have seen in some companies is the learning just happen after the change, like finish, after it's not even when it's communicated, when you are implementing, not even that, just at the end, okay, just you have one full training, 1 month full of training, and that's it, then you can go. So that is why for me it's important, like to have that clarity when it's come to change, and what is your
Yeah.
experience, your perspective for that kind of organization. What happens or what are like the negative impacts if they don't have that kind of vision when is the right time to do it when applying transformation.
Yeah. In that sense, I'm really thinking, what's the purpose of having learning in the process? So it's because it's a tick box that we need to check, like, okay, through all the different tasks, the learning is done, but it doesn't really matter when. Or we want to have learning having a role in this change process in a purposeful manner. So what do we expect that the learning will help us with? So this is even something that needs to be considered through the planning phase when we are deciding what the different actions along the way, the different communications, when are going to involve each one of the different parts. When we think, hey, we need to put some training here, some learning initiatives because the change needs that. Okay, cool. When and why? Because if they decide the best place is at the end, all right, because maybe it's a matter of speeding up the learning curve, because at the end we can learn via trial and error, or we can speed up the learning process through a training. So if they think, yeah, what we want them is just to try, we don't care about mistakes, we don't care about frustration along the way, this is going to grow resilience on them. Whatever, we have a expected low rate of dropout through this change, so we don't really care about that. We will put it at the end just to polish the amount of errors and mistakes that happen, or to improve certain behaviors after the change is completed. It makes sense because they want to use this also as an experience, right? But if we have our attention in diminishing mistakes along the way, to diminish friction along the way, to increase confidence and diminish dropout rates, I think it's important to allocate training or learning initiatives in the right moment, because otherwise this will lead to friction, frustration, etc. So it really depends. Of course, I'm speaking from my perspective and from what I consider could be the best way, but also I'm open to different perspectives. And if they are justified because of the goal they have in mind, they can make sense. The downside of this, is when we want just to have some learning because it's on the checklist. And we need to put it somewhere, and it's like, well, we don't have time. We spend this amount of hours, comes in meetings, etc., implementation of tools, whatever. And then at the end, we just put an e-learning that takes 1 hour to do, and we have the learning done. It has to have a purpose. Otherwise, it's a waste of time for the learning department and for the employees. It has to have a why and a when, especially defined because of the impact it can have on that stage.
What you were saying let me thinking about how important, I will rephrase that. I think it's connected with the organizational culture or the culture assist. So what do you think about that relationship between culture, change, organization, and L&D?
Wow,
It's a
that's a
big
very big
question, I know.
question.
And a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, change can modify the culture of our organization, right? And also the culture is something that tends to be more stable, and of course you can have the mission, vision, values, but as well the non-written culture, right? The expectations regarding how we work together, even the cultural framework where the company is. It's not the same a company that is located, let's say, Madrid. So in Madrid, with just operating with Spanish people and in a really limited context, or if we have a multinational which operates in Spain, Argentina, Mexico, States, UK, with people from 15 different nationalities, it's quite different one as well, right? Even the language of communication we're going to use, the expectations regarding how we're going to collaborate. So yeah. And of course, we need to think about what is the matrix, which usually takes to take the lead regarding the culture in many occasions. But yeah, I think it will bring culture change and learning. I think if any company wants to do a cultural shift, of course, this will require some change planning and change management, and learning should be there. For example, we think about changing the way our leaders lead. Let's imagine we're in an old school company that the managers used to have the old ways of managing. So do what I say and do how I say you do it. Very directive, very I have the power. and you follow my instructions. At least that's how it can happen sometimes when we are with old school management. Yeah. But we decide that since we're going to become more, let's say, technological, because we have a specific product and we want to make it more tech, and we want to attract talent that's from different generations, different expectations, come from different industry, we want to make this shift to make sure people come and stay because of the culture of the organization. Of course, in this change, we need to think about what kind of leaders we want, how can we train them to become the type of leader, what kind of skills do they need, and what could be the culture of leadership within the organization, creating the leadership framework, certain competencies that we expect from leaders, etc. Plus, it requires time. So how long is going to take the implementation from the beginning to the end? And as well, we may expect that we will lose some people along the way. And of course, in an example like this, learning has a crucial role by supplying the learning initiatives to the leaders, from trainings about specific topics of leadership to coaching from an external supplier, through mentoring as well. We have more senior leaders in the organization that have this approach, or even across different organizations with the culture we aim to have in this organization that we're trying to help. So yeah, when there is required cultural shift, I think besides of the change support, learning should be there in order to make the adequate change in a timely manner. We can expect, of course, if we give some information that things will change on their own. But what learning does is impulsing this change to happen faster, basically. And therefore to cost saving and also personal saving too, in many occasions.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. I want to add an extra question to that. You are a global L&D professional specialist. So I understand, I assuming that you work with cross-cultural team, multicultural team. So
Yeah.
how the learning goes in that kind of environment? I'm really curious to know about that and your experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's something that we shouldn't disregard. And I really like that you mentioned this topic because, of course, I'm sitting on one side of the ocean, you're sitting on the other side, where we see no small squares, speaking English. Also, when we speak Spanish, we understand each other, right? But this is the only small part that we see from each other. We don't know about the reality, about the values, about the expectations regarding what's right, what's wrong in our cultures. That could be more similar or more different, right? And if we just multiply this per 10 or per 50, by bringing 10 or 50 or 100 cultures different together, it becomes even more complex. Especially in these industries, departments, organizations that have many cultures in the same room, I think is fundamental to at least bring cultural awareness to the leaders, and as well, if it's needed, to the rest of the staff. But the leaders need to be aware of that, and staff also to increase their self-awareness and the awareness of other people. For example, there are for these several tools that can be used in order to understand how the different cultures work, communicate, what are their values, etc. And of course, we only see the behaviors, right? But under that, we can even deep dive to understand the values of it. And one of those could be power distance. So, and this can be quietly well seen in many organizations. So there are some organizations that are more horizontal, and more other organizations are more vertical. And as well, there are some cultures that tend to be more horizontal and are aligned with this kind of organization, and other countries that tend to be more vertical. For example, I was working in the Netherlands, and I would say, in comparison with my original culture, because also we need to compare, right? The Netherlands is a more horizontal culture. So you can say your manager directly what you think. You can voice your opinion in a meeting. And actually, it's important that you voice your opinion because it's a way of showing that you are connected with the topic, that you have something to say. In my original culture in Spain, you can speak in a meeting, but also you don't have to. So it's important that you listen and you're present there. If you have something to add, you can. And there are other cultures that even is not expected from you during a meeting to intervene as a listener. So is your manager telling you whatever the manager has to say, and after that you leave the room. So if we mix different culture with different perspectives in the same room in a meeting, for instance, we have a Dutch person with someone from Eastern Asia. They're also quite observant in this kind of context. They listen to the manager, but many times they don't voice their opinions directly. This could bring to misunderstandings. So a Dutch person may say from a person from I don't know, from Japan, that is not proactive enough because it's not interacting in the room, it's not saying what they think. And also maybe Japanese will think, hey, maybe this person is a bit rude because it's just saying their opinion all the time while we are here just to listen. And with this situation, there's no right or wrong, it's just different. There are more dimensions in this way, but I think it's fundamental to bring some space of reflection, some training, and of course, we can't find the exact middle ground. That's not possible. But what we can do is increase our self-awareness and awareness of the other. Many of these misunderstandings are not because we want to hurt each other, we are rude, we are mean. It's not about that. It's just we have different expectations regarding the context. And we need to understand them and being a bit flexible regarding how we navigate these interactions. So yeah, for sure that in learning and also in departments, depending on the company, right? Some departments have an inclusion, diversity, and belonging department. Some companies have it to bring in this cultural awareness factor, especially when we're speaking about multicultural companies, where the misunderstandings can cause a lot of annoyance and friction and just not a good feeling at work because of the cultural barrier that goes beyond the language we're using or the format we're using to communicate.
Yes, thank you for bringing, like sharing your experience. There is a book I love, and I read it like twice already. That The Culture Map by Eric Mayer. I love that book. So yeah,
I love it.
it's like I will recommend that book to anybody that wants to learn about that multicultural perspectives, I will say, and how can we enhance with our own culture, because that applies even in the same country, right? You in Madrid, and it's different from Barcelona, from other cities like Valencia, and here in Argentina, it's the same. So yeah,
Hmm.
there are a lot of things to say and share about that. I want to ask you another question in a different perspective now. It's like two questions in one, as always. But my point is,
Yeah.
on the one side, talking about failures, something that really challenged you, and how that make you feel, and what were your learnings about that. And in the on the other hand, um, it's about the frustration when going in, I will say, implementation, a strategy as well. Yes, like I'm planning. Yes, in L&D.
So regarding failure, something that has been there in my career as a learning specialist and also working in education is about how much I've learned regarding how important it is to prepare yourself. So not just knowing what kind of training you're going to do, but really understanding what's the need of the person, not just because of giving some content is going to change anything. Making sure you have the the place or the time and people are available, and if applicable, the budget. Because otherwise, you can have all these fantastic ideas, but yeah, they won't materialize, or you will have one idea that initially could be interesting for the organization, but then if there's no budget, no people, no space, no nothing, well, they will stay forever in a drawer or will be dismissed. So I think it's very important to really understand beforehand what are the things you can count on in order to make this a reality. And as well, also in this sense, with the frustration linked, how to manage expectations with the organization, with the department, with HR, and with the stakeholders. Sometimes they want something fast, impactful, and cheap. And if anyone has a secret for that, please let me know because it's very hard to achieve. Yeah,
Indeed, it
it's
is.
hard,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that would be a dream, right? But jokes apart, really understanding what are the constraints and what do they want to prioritize. Do they need a training that is fast? And this could be maybe externally created, but it won't be cheap. If they want to be high quality, it will be more pricey even. So we really need to be able to manage those expectations. And sometimes this requires some soft skills, making sure that the tender business is well taken care of, and also a clear communication between the different parties involved, from the Department of Learning to the people in charge of paying. Sometimes it's the function, sometimes it's the country, sometimes it's the HR department, sometimes it's learning itself because it has a budget allocated for that, depending on how it's divided and how large is the company. But for sure, there should be clarity from the beginning. And as well to be flexible along the way, but not too flexible, if it makes sense. So making sure that our goal is clear and that they're not going to come up with new adapts that are too large or too costly, because we don't have the time for that. Maybe we can remove certain parts, maybe we can adapt certain parts of the initiative to make it, I don't know, virtual or video or voiceover or a workshop, whatever. But just making sure that the overall product we're going to provide is defined enough from the beginning. So we have some space for wiggling and changing certain parts of maybe the delivery part, but the product stays kind of stable. So that would be the biggest frustration, regarding learning. That sometimes some misunderstandings happen, and that making sure expectations and agreement have to be clear from the beginning, and as well that the parts involved need to collaborate. As many times, for instance, so we need an initiative that is cheap, but is good, and it responds to our needs. So for this, we can come with subject matter experts in the organization. So we want a training about Excel, for instance. And we search in our pool of employees. We see some people that are quite advanced user of this tool. So we contact them. We're looking for a volunteer or two. We ask them to bring in the content in order to transform it into a course. But we need to make sure that the people have time for that, are available, respond in time, etc., in order to fulfill the different stages of developing the training. That, of course, will take more time compared to just purchasing an external one, but that will meet the expectations and the need if we're able to fulfill the different timing established. Yeah. So all in all, maintaining expectations, maintaining budgets, and also maintaining deadlines. That's the frustrating part sometimes of learning. Yeah.
I think I will add one more.
Okay.
Yes, I mean, regarding the frustration, not another question. Metrics.
Yes,
I think,
that's a very good one.
yes, I related directly, like with change. I mean, how do you measure change? Okay, how do you measure an L&D planning? Not planning, but
Yeah.
an implementation, right?
Yeah.
So I think that is another one that also plays a huge part in all this. Mhm.
Yeah, and that's very true. I really agree with that. Thank you for bringing in, because of course, sometimes we have learning initiatives because we perceive a need in the organization, but how do we measure? So the easiest part to measure is the impact of the initiative directly on the target population. Let's say we launch an e-learning about Excel, and at the end of it, the users can answer a short survey. Was it useful? Was it relevant for your role? Would you recommend this course to anyone in your position or in a different position that needs to use Excel, etc.? From 1 to 10, how much are you going to apply from what you have learned in this training? Yeah, and we can have this metric also. That can even give us the NPS, the perception of the participants from the training. Then we can measure the learning part, which in the Kirkpatrick scale is the level 2, the impact or the reception is the level 1, the learning is the level 2. And in this case, we can measure how much people were able to retain after the training. And in an Excel example, we can do a test, or we can ask them to work with a database or with a sheet. In soft skills, what can be done is a role play. So you receive, I don't know, coaching for success training for managers. you specify specific content, and after that you are observing an interaction where the manager is coaching a team member, and you see if the different parts that should be there are implemented, from the structure of the conversation, types of questions, active listening, etc. So you measure if the learning happens. But this doesn't mean the behavior will change, which takes us to level 3. So on level 3, what we can do is to consider certain actions, either to follow up how this learning is part of the day-to-day. And for this also can be used other metrics that already exist in the organization, such as the employee experience, right? If there is any question connected to my manager supports me when I'm facing challenges and the score increases, this means that maybe this training about coaching for success that the managers received is happening there. Or similarly with the Excel part, if we perceive that the service level to finish certain actions is smaller or there are less mistakes, we can see this is already being part of the day-to-day work. And for this as well, we can ask directly to the employees, maybe 3 months after, how confident do you feel using this tool, or what has changed in your way of communicating in this context. This requires additional questioning, but this could be a way of following up the learning initiative that we started. And the last one, the level 4, is the return of the investment, which is the trickiest one to consider. And for this, for sure, we need to cross data and objectives with other parts of HR regarding rotation, talent retention, etc., in order to make sure that the amount of money and time invested in these employees has an impact. So the person stays, the person performs better, but it's usually the trickiest part. So for sure, impact should be there. It's not having just a learning initiative for the sake of having it, but how can it really transform how we are working, and also how we can empower the employees to perform in a more confident and accurate manner at work.
Great. Thank you very much for that. I would love to keep talking and keep having this conversation around L&D. So we are closing this episode. So I would like to ask you a piece of advice for those that are in the learning and development space, that are just starting, or maybe just are interested into knowing more about it, and others like you that are senior global L&D specialists. So what would be your piece of advice for them?
Well, I mean,
A very
I think I'm the one that
open
needs
question.
advice. Well, I mean, from my own perspective and what I consider important, is to have always the eyes on the employee, not observing them, but really understanding what do they need. We're a service for the employee that impacts directly in the business. So we need to understand the business, but be close to the employee, understanding how they behave, what they need, how they learn, how we can provide them with solutions that can have the impact that we expect to happen. Also, I'm saying this because I'm strongly customer oriented. So what I perceive in my experience is sometimes we speak within our circle. So we speak with learning and HR and the stakeholder, but then the end user, we speak to them and they don't understand us. And then I think the learning initiative, or even the positioning of the learning initiative, doesn't make any sense. We need to understand who are we targeting to, how we need to speak to them, and also who is the crucial person that will say yes or no to a person to participate in training. For example, if we're thinking about, I don't know, a team leader that wants to nominate individual contributor of their team to participate in a leadership program because we see potential in this person. We need to explain to the manager what's the program about in order to understand what's the best person in the room that he or she has to bring it into the training. And then we need to speak to this person that you have been selected for this in order to diminish the alarming part, right? So we really need to have in mind the people that are going to receive the content. Listening to the business, we're supporting the business and we need each other. But at the end of the day, the learning attendant and the people that are going to be directly involved with the initiative need to understand what we're bringing in. And we need to promote ourselves better sometimes. And this also has happened to me. We're one of the departments that is probably one of the best perceived in the organization. close to IT. I mean, they need IT to make sure the laptop works well, right? But also for learning is like, what do you have for me? I want to learn. I want to do something. We need to position ourselves well in the organization. We need to make clear what we're bringing to the employees and what are the offers that are open to everyone and how they can access in a language and through the channels that will really reach out to them. Otherwise, we're just working without bringing not much or as much as we could to the organization. Yeah.
I will highlight a few words that from what you just said. Customized learning experience. So that's the point. So I appreciate you having here again for this episode. Thank you very much, Cristina. Where people can find you.
Yeah, so people can find me via LinkedIn, looking for Cristina Perez Muñoz, and yeah, the person working for learning. My name is quite common, but I think there are not many working in learning with the same name as I have. So yeah, located in Madrid.
Okay, great. I will see you next time. I hope that we have a conversation of something together soon in near future. Until then, stay safe.
Same to you, Laura. Thank you very much.
Thanks to everyone who makes these podcasts possible. In particular, thanks to the guest speakers and to you who are on the other side listening. If you liked it and were able to learn something new today, we invite you to share it with your entire network. We also invite you to subscribe to our different channels to follow our latest news. If you are interested in being part of these series, you can apply by clicking on the link that is in the general presentation of the podcast. Until next time.
A special thanks to the boys, Kashish Wadbani,